Stark County Story, and it's by E.T. Heald, Heald, and they were radio broadcasts that were actually transcribed. But it has there's one that in one of the volumes that has a whole chapter on Molly Stark. Talks about who the different administrators were. Talks about different programs and fundraisers that they would do. Talks about like the number of employees, how the hospital got started, and a lot of interesting little facts like how they had a mobile X-ray unit that would go to different places in the county to give people their chest X-rays, so that way the early detection could help them in the long run. So those are really two great resources if you really wanted to dig down in and find out more stuff. So, yes.
Yeah, elevator.
Yes. So that top of that very top, that's kind of the elevator shaft. So, yeah, great question. All right, we'll keep going.
Come on, my nose in the air.
It's not hurt. No,
A fan.
nothing.
You see it? An AC.
Isn't it so cool?
Yeah. Sure, we get something to eat once we're done.
Right here, where this grass part is, there's a small, like, birding trail that moves around, kind of follows where the small little trees are, and then cut down back by where we were. That's really the only trail in here. A lot of people like bringing their dogs out here. It's kind of a nice place to walk around. But back in the day, at the hospital, they would have had nice manicured, like landscape, ground. They had sidewalks, that way the patients could go out and walk around. And they really wanted this place to be as peaceful, I guess, as possible, because the philosophy of tuberculosis treatment in the early days was to get people sunlight and to get people like a nice climate. So when people would get tuberculosis, they would often recommend them to go out west, where it's nice and warm, dry air, since it's a lung disease, to get that helps with that way. However, not everyone has the luxury to be able to just pick up and move out west. So in place people needed treatment here. So that's why one of the reasons why they kind of picked this nice place. If you even look out towards that farmer's field, I mean, just how pretty the landscape is. So it's kind of something to do. Now the top floor, not really in this newer section, but some of the older sections where you saw that railing along the edges, all of that's open. So when TB patients were here, they could actually go up there and kind of like sunbathe, essentially, to try to get as much sun as they possibly could.
Trevor,
Yes.
wasn't tuberculosis more consumption back in the old days?
Yes. So there's actually, before they had a good grasp on it, they had there was some places that believed it was connected to vampirism, because people were coughing up blood and they would be pale and people would lose weight and people would quickly kind of transmit that. So a lot of places thought it was people becoming like vampires. Also called consumption.
Yeah. Well, that's what Doc Holliday died from.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
like, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's just beautiful.
The next part's really cool.
Saying how calm it is, weather-wise, is making me uneasy. The weather's too calm. Saying how it literally hailed yesterday, I thought there would be something going on today. But nope, just sun.
Okay, so why I stopped you here was not to admire our beautiful porta potty, but what actually is next to it. So a lot of people come to this park, they may have came here time and time again, but they might have overlooked this cool little detail of this bronze plaque that is in the cement here. It dates all the way back to 1938. So that plaque talks about a project that happened here, which was connected to the WPA program. So how many of you have heard of the WPA before? From maybe social studies class. Okay, so if you don't know, WPA was the Works Progress Administration. It was put into place during Franklin Roosevelt's presidency because of the Depression through the what was called the New Deal to get people back to work. So what they did was they went around to a lot of places throughout the United States, a lot of places in Stark County, and did different infrastructure type projects, building roads, building sewers, building stadiums, things like that. And yeah, dams, things like that. And one of those projects was actually here, and it was to build a system of tunnels, which are still under the ground today, that actually connected the buildings that were here. There actually used to be 5 buildings originally. So there's this children's building, which we're going to go see in a second, the main hospital building that we just walked around, and then there was a power plant that actually sat in the back. There was a nurse's quarters, because a lot of hospitals in the early days, like the staff and stuff would live on site and just work here. There was a nurse's quarters, and there was a administrator's, superintendent's house. If you go on to our Facebook page, Stark Park's Facebook page, I think we still have a video from a while back that the Louisville Historical Society sent us. It's like about a half-a-minute video, but it's a flyover from the 50s, that shows all 5 buildings here, shows all the sidewalks that were here. So if you get a chance, and if you can find it, it's really great to see how much different it looks from then to now. But there actually was 5 buildings here. There are tunnels underneath the ground, where those old buildings, I think, were demolished around 2004, but the tunnels were just kind of cut off wherever those buildings were. But now they are dark, dreary places. They fill up with water all the time. But sometimes when you come here, like on a snowy day, because the tunnel kind of goes through the road, it'll be uncovered from snow because of how that heat kind of stays in that tunnel and permeates to the ground. So come back on a snowy day. You might not see anybody else here, but you might see just kind of where the tunnel sort of is. But so not a little known fact that happened here. So all right, and then this building right here. This is a small boiler building. That I believe was built in the 70s. So that's not kind of one of the original 5 buildings. So, all right, go over this one.
You're welcome. You're welcome. No problem. You know I got it. Your mother. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so this building is the children's building. So when this was built, this had the children patients who had tuberculosis were in this part. There was, I'm not very great with numbers, there was about 40 beds. The main building in 1929 had 128 beds. The children's building had 38 beds. In 1932, the daily average number of patients was 161. And in 1947, it was 117. And in 1951, it was 131. There was 89 employees in 1937 and 280 employees in the 1980s. Now, this building served as the children's wing until the late 40s, and then they closed it, turned it into kind of like staff housing and offices, and then they moved those patients over to the main one, especially with the expansions being added and stuff, they could put more people over there. Since children had to have an education, and if they were here in the early years, they would be here multiple years. They would have school services here. The upper floor was kind of open. It had kind of like an open schoolroom kind of space to it. This building's nice because you can actually get up close and see around it. There's a lot of holes that you can peek in and look through. As you will tell when you walk around, there's a lot of boards that have been ripped off and a lot that look new because they just had to add new boards. Because people always, it's kind of like bugs. They find a way in. But you can really get up close and see the nice ornamentation of some of these, like plaster decorations. One of them that I always point out is the one that's over there that has the double crosses on it. And that actually there's a deeper story to that. So there was a kind of a fundraising program that occurred that's called Christmas Seals. And you would buy Christmas seals. So I found this picture off the internet. You can see the double cross in the picture. And that E.T. Heald book talks about like every year how much the Christmas seals raised that would be fundraised towards tuberculosis. That was pretty interesting. Here in a second, I'll let you kind of walk around on your own. But I just want to tell a couple things before you go off or if you decide to leave. One of them is about the garden. So once I finish, you're more than welcome to walk around. I'll stay and answer questions. But the gardens up there are very interesting. You drove by them when you came in. Those are actually relatively new. We just had the grand opening ceremony for them in June. And it was really a partnership between Stark Parks, Safe Communities, the Sheriff's Office, and a lot of different other organizations. But that was built as a place to mourn traffic victims, because a lot of times you'll see people, where someone's had an accident, they'll put like teddy bears and stuff like right along the road, and which is unsafe. So they wanted a place that people could safely do that. So they worked to have that here. And there's actually 3 parts to the garden. There's like the traffic garden. There's just a regular celebration garden. and then there's something else. I think just a regular memorial garden. But through Stark Parks, if you go to our website, you can find information on how you can like buy a brick if you want to buy a brick in somebody's name or you know, memorialize them in some other way. So it's a really cool thing. It's not fully planted yet. I'm sure in the next few years we'll get more plants put in there, but it's kind of a nice addition to this park. And I know that one of the judges involved has been sending kids who have been in like traffic court and stuff out here to do their community service as a way to get them to kind of think about that decision and why, you know, they don't want someone to get hurt like that. So they've been doing community service and things like that out here too. So, you know, we're really excited about that, and hopefully in the next few years that will kind of be built up and be even bigger and better. And then usually I always end this with a story, and it's a really great story, and it's kind of like an unbelievable story that it actually happened. But back in the early 1970s, and if you go online and look up the story, you'll find it. So there was an opening for like the administrator job here, and it was a really great job. It made like over $20,000 a year, which today doesn't seem like a lot, but back in the 70s that was a lot of money. They had free housing, you know, a lot of perks to this job. And a guy named Dr. Edward Bradley applied for the job, got the job, started working here. However, Dr. Edward Bradley was not actually Dr. Edward Bradley. It was a guy named James Wayne Farmer who stole this doctor's credentials, applied for the job, and this is back before they had all the vetting that we do now and background check stuff and all that. So he got the job, started working here, worked here for about 3 weeks. People started catching on that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And then when the cops were coming, he wrote like a hasty resignation letter and fled before they got him. And then I think he ended up getting caught in like Missouri. And then he came back, was charged. He pled not guilty, said he was doing the job that he was doing. And then I think he only ended up serving about 90 days in jail for that. But the repository, I have an article somewhere in here from like 2001 where he was caught again for a different crime. He was trying to like get a bank loan for like $1 million and said he had all this accounts and things like that somewhere else. So he's kind of like a professional con artist, swindle people out of their money throughout the years. And it kind of always reminds me of that movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. I always make that analogy. And that guy, actually, Frank Abagnale, he went and spoke at Kent State Stark like a couple years ago for their featured speaker series. Because he was the good story of being a con artist, but then doing good by working for the FBI. But it doesn't sound like this guy here took that same approach. But yeah, look it up. Just type in Dr. Edward Bradley, Molly Stark Hospital, and on Google, and I'm sure you'll come up with something, a hit for it. So I always like ending that story, and I appreciate you guys coming out. You're more than welcome to walk around this building. You can see things more up close. If you want to check out the gardens, you're more than welcome to. If you have any questions, I'll stick around and answer them. And this park technically closes at dark, so don't stick around too long. But glad to have you guys out. So,
Got one for you.
Thank you.
yes, sir.